The notification chimed at 11:47 p.m., just as I was finishing my third cup of coffee and reviewing depositions for the Morrison case. Rachel's name lit up my phone screen with a message that made me freeze. Working late at the conference again. Don't wait up. Jake's helping me prep for tomorrow's presentation. You know how these corporate events drag on. Love you. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. After 12 years of marriage and 6 years of watching my wife transform from the ambitious photographer I fell in love with into this social media-obsessed stranger, I'd developed a sixth sense for her lies. The overly detailed explanation, the unnecessary emoji, the mention of Jake Morrison, our mutual friend from college who'd somehow wormed his way into every aspect of our lives over the past year. I typed back, "Hope you and Jake enjoy working so hard together. I'm sure the presentation will be explosive." 23 minutes later, our apartment door burst open with such force that it slammed against the wall. Rachel stood in the doorway, her perfectly styled blonde hair disheveled, mascara smeared beneath her green eyes, and her designer dress wrinkled in ways that told a story I didn't want to hear. "Ethan, we need to talk," she said, her voice shaking. I looked up from my laptop, taking in every detail of her appearance with the analytical eye that had made me one of the youngest partners at Henderson, Cross & Associates. The lipstick was gone, her jewelry was askew, there was a faint smell of cologne that definitely wasn't mine. "Do we?" I asked, closing the laptop slowly. "Because I thought you were working late with Jake on that very important presentation." Rachel's face went white. She fumbled with her purse, nearly dropping it as she tried to hang it on the hook by the door. We finished early. The presentation went well. Really well. Funny thing about presentations, Rachel. They usually happen during business hours. It's almost midnight on a Tuesday." She laughed, but it came out strangled and desperate. "You know how these corporate events are. Networking, drinks, schmoozing with clients. Jake introduced me to some potential sponsors for my photography business." I stood up, stretching to my full 6'2" frame. Years of boxing in college had left me lean and strong, and I could see Rachel's eyes dart nervously as I moved toward her. Not because she was afraid of me, I'd never laid a hand on her in anger, but because she knew I could read her like a legal brief. "Jake's been very helpful lately, hasn't he?" I said, my voice carrying the same tone I used in court when I was about to destroy a witness. "Always there when you need him. Always ready to lend a hand with your business. Always conveniently available when I'm working late." "Ethan, you're being paranoid. Jake's our friend. He's been our friend since college." "Our friend," I repeated, savoring the words. "Right. Our friend who drives a silver Mercedes, license plate JM 2019. Our friend who's been texting you at all hours. Our friend who somehow knows exactly when I'll be out of town for depositions." Rachel's composure cracked completely. She sank into the leather armchair we'd bought together during happier times, burying her face in her hands. "How long have you known?" "Known what, Rachel? That our marriage is a joke? That you've been lying to me for months? Or that you're sleeping with Jake Morrison?" The words hung in the air like smoke from a gunshot. Rachel looked up at me with tears streaming down her face, but I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no betrayal. Just a cold, calculating clarity that I recognized from my most successful cases. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "It's exactly what I think. And Rachel, I'm just getting started." The next morning, Rachel left early for what she claimed was a photo shoot in downtown Boston. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then began my investigation with the methodical precision that had made me a formidable attorney. I started with her laptop, which she'd carelessly left open on the kitchen counter. Her email revealed a pattern of deception that would have impressed a seasoned con artist. Dinner reservations at expensive restaurants on nights she claimed to be working, hotel bookings in her name during my business trips, credit card charges at lingerie stores I'd never seen her shop at. But the real treasure trove was hidden in plain sight. While fixing a jammed drawer in our bedroom dresser, a task Rachel had been nagging me about for weeks, I discovered a second phone wedged behind the wooden backing. The burner phone was a cheap Android model, the kind you could buy with cash at any convenience store. As I scrolled through the messages, my legal training kicked in, cataloging evidence with detached professionalism. "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about what you did to me." Rachel to Jake, sent 3 days ago. "Your husband's working late again. My place or the usual hotel?" Jake to Rachel, sent last week. "I love the way you make me feel alive again. Ethan hasn't touched me in months." Rachel to Jake, sent 2 weeks ago. "The photos were worse. Explicit selfies, intimate moments captured in Jake's bachelor pad that I recognized from his housewarming party last year. Rachel's face was flushed with passion I hadn't seen directed at me in years. One message thread made me freeze. Jake, when are you going to tell him? Rachel, I can't yet. The divorce will ruin me financially. I need to secure the photography contracts first, maybe get some of his assets transferred. Jake, I hate sneaking around. I want to be with you properly. Rachel, soon, baby. Let me handle Ethan. He's so buried in his work. He doesn't suspect anything. We just need to be patient. I photographed everything with my own phone, creating a digital evidence file that would make any private investigator proud. Then I carefully returned the burner phone to its hiding place and sat on our bed, staring at the wall where Rachel had hung her favorite photograph, a black and white shot of us on our honeymoon in Napa Valley, both of us laughing at some forgotten joke. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd built my career on exposing lies and holding people accountable for their actions. Now it was time to apply those skills to my personal life. I called my office and told my secretary I'd be working from home for the rest of the week. Then I opened my laptop and began planning Rachel's destruction with the same meticulous attention to detail I brought to every case. The first step was reconnaissance. I needed to understand the full scope of their relationship and identify all the players in this drama. Jake worked at Morrison Financial Consulting, a mid-sized firm that specialized in helping small businesses manage their investments. He'd built a reputation as a smooth-talking golden boy who could charm clients into trusting him with their life savings. Rachel's photography business had been struggling for years, despite her constant claims of impending success. She specialized in social media content for local influencers and small businesses, but her client base was inconsistent and her income barely covered her equipment costs. I'd been subsidizing her dream for the past 3 years, watching our joint savings account dwindle while she chased Instagram fame. Now I understood why she'd suddenly started landing bigger contracts. Jake wasn't just her lover, he was her business partner, using his connections to funnel clients her way. They weren't just betraying me emotionally, they were building a financial future together at my expense. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Shoot running long, don't wait up for dinner, love you. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Take your time, sweetheart. I'm having a very productive day. That evening, I followed Rachel using the Find My Phone feature we'd set up years ago for safety. The little blue dot led me across town to the Riverside Motor Lodge, a seedy establishment that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions about fake names on the register. Jake's silver Mercedes was parked in the back corner of the lot, positioned for a quick getaway. I sat in my Honda Civic 3 spaces away, watching the second-floor window where shadows moved behind thin curtains. The old Ethan might have stormed up those stairs and confronted them. The old Ethan might have broken down and cried, or gotten drunk and made a scene. But the new Ethan, the one who'd been forged in the fire of betrayal, had a better plan. I walked calmly to Jake's Mercedes and pulled out my keys. The metal made a satisfying screech as I carved the word cheater into his pristine hood. Then I unscrewed both license plates and slipped them into my jacket pocket. For good measure, I left a note under his windshield wiper. You're not as clever as you think. Smile for the cameras. A friend. As I walked back to my car, I noticed an elderly woman watching from her ground floor window across the street. Perfect. In a town like ours, gossip traveled faster than wildfire, and Mrs. Henderson from Maple Street was the town's unofficial news network. I waved at her and smiled. She quickly closed her curtains, but I knew she'd already taken photos with her phone. By tomorrow morning, half the neighborhood would know that Jake Morrison's car had been vandalized at a no-tell motel. The next phase required more finesse. I spent the following day at my office, using my legal connections to gather intelligence on Jake's business dealings. What I discovered was even better than I'd hoped. Morrison Financial Consulting was currently under review by the state licensing board for several questionable investment recommendations. Nothing criminal, but enough regulatory gray area to make his employers nervous. Jake's reputation was built on trust and reliability, 2 things that would evaporate the moment his personal life became public knowledge. Rachel's photography business was even more vulnerable. Her biggest client was Pinnacle Marketing, a conservative firm that specialized in family-oriented businesses. Their morality clause was ironclad. Any contractor who brought negative publicity to the company could be terminated immediately without compensation. I drafted a series of anonymous emails, each one carefully crafted to plant seeds of doubt without making direct accusations. The first went to Jake's boss at Morrison Financial. Dear Mr. Patterson, I thought you should know that one of your employees has been conducting personal business during work hours and using company resources for inappropriate activities. I have photographic evidence if you're interested. A concerned client. The second email went to the head of marketing at Pinnacle. Dear Ms. Rodriguez, I'm a longtime customer who's concerned about the contractors you're using for your social media campaigns. Rachel Chen has been posting some questionable content on her personal accounts that doesn't align with your family values brand. You might want to review her recent activity. A loyal customer. I sent both emails from an untraceable account, then sat back and waited for the chaos to begin. Rachel came home that evening in a panic. Her hands were shaking as she poured herself a large glass of wine, her third since walking through the door. Ethan, something weird happened today. Someone vandalized Jake's car at that motel where he was meeting a client, and my contact at Pinnacle called asking strange questions about my social media presence. I looked up from my legal briefs with practiced concern. That's terrible, honey. Did Jake report it to the police? He can't. I mean, he doesn't want to make a big deal about it. You know how these things go. Sometimes clients get upset about investment advice and take it out on their advisors. Right, I said, nodding sympathetically. And what did Pinnacle want to know about your social media? Rachel's face flushed. Something about inappropriate content, which is ridiculous. I'm always professional online. Someone's obviously trying to sabotage my business. Who would do something like that? She stared at me for a long moment, her green eyes searching my face for any sign of deception. I kept my expression neutral, a skill I'd perfected during countless jury trials. I don't know, she said finally, but I'm going to find out. I smiled and returned to my reading. I'm sure you will, sweetheart. I'm sure you will. The next few days unfolded like a masterfully orchestrated legal strategy. Jake's boss called him in for a meeting about maintaining professional boundaries. Rachel lost her biggest contract when Pinnacle decided not to renew her services. The local gossip network, fueled by Mrs. Henderson's photos, began connecting the dots between Jake's vandalized car and his frequent business meetings with married women. But I was just getting started. Rachel's best friend Monica Santos owned a trendy photography studio downtown where all the local influencers gathered for their content creation sessions. Monica was the kind of woman who collected secrets like vintage cameras, always ready to focus on other people's flaws while keeping her own carefully hidden behind a perfect facade. I'd never liked Monica, and the feeling was mutual. She'd always treated me like I wasn't good enough for Rachel, making snide comments about my working-class background and my boring legal career. But Monica had one weakness. She loved being the center of attention, especially when it involved exposing other people's scandals. I called her on Thursday afternoon, putting on my most concerned husband voice. Monica, I need your advice about something sensitive. It's about Rachel. Oh? Her interest was immediately piqued. What's wrong? I think she might be having some kind of breakdown. She's been acting strange lately, secretive, defensive, staying out late for work meetings that don't seem to exist. I'm worried about her mental health. There was a pause. Monica knew something. I could hear it in her silence. Ethan, I don't know if I should be the one to tell you this. Tell me what? I've seen her around town with Jake Morrison, a lot. At restaurants, coming out of hotels. I didn't want to say anything because I thought maybe it was just business, but what? Last week I saw them kissing in his car outside my studio. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I should have told you sooner. The performance was perfect. Monica got to be the heroic friend who revealed the truth, while I got confirmation that their affair was now public knowledge among Rachel's social circle. Thank you for telling me, I said, injecting just the right amount of hurt into my voice. I need some time to process this. Of course. And Ethan? If you need anything, someone to talk to, a place to stay, I'm here for you. I almost laughed at the transparent attempt to position herself as my ally. Monica was already calculating how she could benefit from the collapse of my marriage. That evening, Rachel came home to find me waiting in the living room with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. We need to talk, I said. She froze in the doorway, her photographer's eye taking in the scene, the formal seating arrangement, the serious expression on my face, the legal documents spread across the coffee table. About what? About Jake, about the lies, about what you really want from this marriage. Rachel's composure cracked. She sank into the chair across from me, her hands trembling as she reached for the wine glass. How long have you known? Long enough. The question is, what are we going to do about it? She looked up at me with tears in her eyes, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with in college, vulnerable, honest, real. I never meant for this to happen, Ethan. Jake and I, we connected. You're always working, always focused on your cases. I felt invisible in my own marriage. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it. It wasn't supposed to go this far. It was just flirtation at first, then coffee meetings, then hotel rooms and lies and planning your exit strategy while draining our joint accounts. Her face went white. You read my messages. I read everything, Rachel. The burner phone, the emails, the financial records. I know about the business deals Jake's been steering your way. I know about your plans to divorce me once you've secured enough assets. I know it all. She started crying then, deep sobs that shook her entire body. But I felt nothing. The woman sitting across from me was a stranger who'd been wearing my wife's face for months. "What do you want?" she whispered. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to the same tone I used when negotiating settlements. "I want you to understand that actions have consequences, Rachel. You chose to betray me, to lie to me, to steal from me. Now you get to live with the results." "What does that mean?" I smiled, and she flinched at the coldness in my expression. "It means you're about to discover what happens when you try to outsmart a lawyer." The Henderson, Cross & Associates annual charity gala was the social event of the year in our mid-sized New England city. Every lawyer, judge, business owner, and social climber in town would be there, dressed in their finest clothes and competing to see who could make the biggest donation to the children's hospital. Rachel had been looking forward to this event for months. She'd bought a new dress, booked appointments at the salon, and planned to use the evening to network with potential photography clients. She had no idea she was walking into a carefully orchestrated trap. I arrived at the Riverside Country Club early, using my position on the planning committee to ensure everything was perfectly arranged. The ballroom was elegant, crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, and a stage where the evening's speakers would address the crowd of 300 guests. Jake arrived with his usual swagger, wearing an expensive tuxedo and flashing his practiced smile at everyone he met. He made a point of avoiding me, but I caught him glancing nervously in my direction throughout the cocktail hour. Rachel looked stunning in her black evening gown, her blonde hair swept up in an elegant chignon. She worked the room like a professional, charming potential clients and posing for photos that would later appear on her Instagram feed. She was in her element, completely unaware that I'd spent the past week setting up her public humiliation. Monica arrived fashionably late, wearing a red dress that screamed for attention. She made a beeline for Rachel, and I watched them whisper together in the corner, their heads bent close like conspirators planning a heist. At exactly 9 o'clock, I stepped onto the stage and tapped the microphone. The crowd quieted, expecting the usual thank you speech and fundraising pitch. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight to support such an important cause. Before we announce this year's donation totals, I'd like to share something personal with all of you." Rachel's face went pale. She was standing near the back of the room with Monica, but I could see her clearly from the stage. "Many of you know me as a lawyer, a professional who deals in facts and evidence. Tonight, I want to talk about truth. Specifically, the truth about marriage, friendship, and betrayal." Jake started moving toward the exit, but I'd anticipated that. 2 security guards, old friends from my boxing days, were positioned at every door. "You see, I recently discovered that my wife of 12 years has been having an affair with someone in this room. Someone we trusted, someone we invited into our home and our lives." The crowd was silent now, everyone straining to hear every word. I could see phones being pulled out, cameras being aimed at the stage. This would be all over social media within minutes. But that's not the most interesting part of this story. The most interesting part is how they tried to cover it up, how they used business connections to benefit from their affair, and how they planned to destroy me financially while continuing their relationship. Rachel was crying now, her makeup running down her cheeks. Monica had stepped away from her, clearly not wanting to be associated with the scandal that was unfolding. I have evidence, of course. Text messages, photos, financial records, hotel receipts, everything a lawyer needs to build an airtight case. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the sound system. Rachel's voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear through the premium speakers. "Ethan hasn't touched me in months. He's so boring, so predictable. Jake makes me feel alive again." Then Jake's voice. "I can't wait until we can be together properly. When are you going to leave him?" And Rachel again. "Soon, baby. Let me handle Ethan. He's so buried in his work. He doesn't suspect anything." The crowd erupted in whispers and gasps. I could see Rachel pushing through the crowd, trying to reach the stage, but the security guards blocked her path. "But wait," I continued. "There's more. Because this story isn't just about adultery, it's about fraud. You see, Jake Morrison has been using his position at Morrison Financial to steer clients to my wife's photography business. Clients who trusted him with their investments, not knowing that he was mixing business with pleasure." Jake's face was bright red now. His boss, Mr. Patterson, was staring at him with undisguised fury. And my dear wife has been using our joint credit cards to pay for hotel rooms and expensive dinners with her lover, all while claiming the charges were business expenses for tax purposes. I clicked to the next audio file, a recording I'd made of Rachel on the phone with her accountant. Just mark it all as business entertainment. Ethan never looks at the books anyway. The crowd was getting restless now, some people laughing, others looking uncomfortable. But nobody was leaving. This was better than any reality TV show. Now I know what you're thinking. Why am I sharing this publicly instead of handling it privately? Well, the answer is simple. Because they made it public. They conducted their affair in restaurants around town, in hotels where people could see them, in my wife's friend's studio where the local influencer community gathered to gossip. I gestured toward Monica, who was now trying to blend into the crowd. Speaking of Monica Santos, she's been particularly helpful in this situation. She's the one who told me about seeing Rachel and Jake together, positioning herself as the concerned friend who just wanted to help. What she didn't mention is that she's been documenting their affair for weeks, taking photos and collecting information. Monica's face went white. I could see her shaking her head, trying to deny what I was saying. You see, Monica has been planning to use this scandal to destroy Rachel's photography business and steal her clients. She's been waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the affair and position herself as the moral alternative. Unfortunately for Monica, I discovered her little scheme and decided to beat her to the punch. I played one more audio file, a recording of Monica talking to another photographer about her plans to expose Rachel's true nature and clean up the local photography scene. The crowd was in chaos now. Rachel was sobbing uncontrollably, Jake was trying to push past security, and Monica was screaming that I was lying. But I'm not done yet, I said, my voice cutting through the noise, because the best part of this story is the ending. You see, while my wife and her lover were planning their future together, I was planning their destruction. I clicked to a slideshow on the projection screen behind me. The first image was a bank statement showing that I'd moved all of our joint assets into a separate account in my name, perfectly legal since I'd earned most of the money. Rachel's photography business is now bankrupt, since I've canceled all the credit cards she was using to pay for equipment and supplies. Jake's facing an investigation by the state licensing board for mixing personal and professional relationships, and Monica's studio is about to lose its lease, since I happen to know the building owner quite well. The final slide was a photo of divorce papers, already filed and processed. So, to conclude this evening's entertainment, my marriage is over, my wife is broke, her lover is facing professional ruin, and her best friend is about to discover what real betrayal feels like. I stepped away from the microphone and walked off the stage, leaving the crowd in stunned silence. As I headed for the exit, I could hear the chaos erupting behind me, shouting, crying, and the clicking of dozens of phone cameras capturing every moment. Rachel caught up with me in the parking lot, her dress torn and her hair disheveled. "Ethan, please. We can work this out. I'll end it with Jake. I'll do whatever you want." I turned to face her one last time. "Rachel, you made your choice months ago. Now you get to live with the consequences. You wanted excitement, passion, a life without boundaries. Congratulations. You got exactly what you asked for." Jake appeared beside her, his tuxedo wrinkled and his face flushed with anger and humiliation. "You bastard! You've ruined everything." I smiled at him with genuine amusement. "No, Jake. You ruined everything the moment you decided to sleep with my wife. I just made sure everyone knew about it." As I got into my car and drove away, I could see them in my rearview mirror. 3 people whose lives I'd systematically destroyed with nothing more than the truth and a talent for dramatic timing. They'd wanted to play games with my life, my marriage, and my trust. Now they knew what happened when they tried to outsmart someone who made a living exposing lies and holding people accountable for their actions. The local news would pick up the story by morning. Social media would spread it across the region by the weekend. Their reputations would never recover, their businesses would fail, and their relationship would crumble under the weight of public scrutiny. I'd won completely, utterly, and permanently. And the best part was that I'd done it all legally, using nothing but their own words and actions against them. As I drove through the quiet streets of our small city, I felt a satisfaction deeper than any courtroom victory I'd ever achieved. Justice wasn't always served in a courtroom with a judge and jury. Sometimes it was served in a ballroom with 300 witnesses and a microphone. They'd wanted a villain. I'd given them a masterpiece.